Ready to rock?
Ready.
Okay, awesome. Fantastic. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jonathan Arias. I'm an attorney. I work with multifamily real estate. Um, so I do a whole lot of evictions, contracts for sale, um, work for foreclosures, and every other thing that relates to management, acquisition, and disposition of properties. But the thing that I said first, as far as evictions goes, that's a big portion of my practice. So that's where I focus. That's my area of specialty, and that's what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. Um, so I wanted to talk. Last time I was here, I talked about how to do an eviction process in the state of Florida. So Harold, this applies to you and your properties. Terrence, not so much for you. If I recall, you're in Philadelphia, or Ohio.
Cleveland.
Yeah, Ohio. So this won't help out too much for you. I am licensed in the state of Florida, and so my expertise is there. However, I do want to. You can still listen in on this in case you want to acquire some property down here in the Sunshine State. So I want to take a step back this time around. So last time I talked about how to do an eviction process and what that entails. But let's take a step back real quick and find out when we even have cause. So yesterday, I was on the phone with a woman, and she was actually overseas in Trinidad and Tobago, and she has an on not an on property, excuse me, a domestic property manager here in the States, even though she's overseas. And she said that the uh, the tenant was saying some very mean, nasty things to his property manager. Excuse me, to her property manager. And sorry if this offends anybody, but this is what he said. He was saying, basically, saying that she's Hispanic and she needs to go back to her country and she doesn't know how to do things right. And this woman, the woman who called me, was furious. She said, "Hey, how can he speak to my property manager that way? Um, that's not right." And I agreed that it wasn't right. The question was, is that cause legally for her to bring an eviction action? And I said, I gave her the spiel that I'm about to give you guys. Um, there are a couple reasons why we can bring an eviction action. Okay. Number one, you have to understand whether you have a cause for eviction by having a valid lease or not. In the state of Florida, the leases do not have to be written. You can meet John Smith on the street and say, "Hey, John Smith, would you like to rent my property for $5,000 a month?" John Smith says yes. You guys shake hands. Consideration is exchanged in the form of cash. Then you have a valid lease agreement in the state of Florida. And if there's a violation of the terms, which in this case there was only one term, which is monthly rent amount, there's a violation of that term, well, you have cause to bring an eviction action for non-payment of rent. Okay, that's number one. But there are also written lease agreements, and at that point, um, you have something more formal, and that's what I, of course, recommend. I recommend that you have a professional do your lease agreement. Okay, so we have a lease agreement. We've established that, and this person has not paid. That's the first reason why you could bring an eviction action, which is non-payment of rent. Now, one thing I want to here's where I bring value. A lot of this stuff is basic. It's like, "Hey, Jonathan, can I evict somebody for not paying me rent?" I mean, anybody off the street is probably gonna be like, "Yeah, I think I probably can do that." But here's why you pay the big bucks to get me, right? Right, Karen? You guys pay me big bucks to be here today. Is because I bring the practice tips, right? So here's a practical tip. Some people they don't take into account grace periods. In the state of Florida, the standard lease that a lot of realtors and professional real estate professionals use has a 5 day provision where there's a grace period. So I've heard of people filing an eviction action. I've never done it, thank God, but they file an eviction action and they get all the way to the end, and then the judge says, wait, this person was actually not late when they filed their eviction action because there was a grace period, and therefore the 3 day notice is not accurate, and therefore you got to go all the way back. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. You just wasted your time. You just wasted your money. And if there's one thing that real estate property owners are not about, they're not about wasting their time, wasting their money. So make sure that you take into account grace periods that you may have. All right. So number one, non-payment of rent. Number two, though, is non-compliance with the lease provision. So let's say, Greg, that you have this beautiful property in Sunrise, Florida, right next to Harold, and you and Harold are neighbors, and you put in some crappy tenants next to Harold's property. Number one, Harold's going to be upset with you. But number two, these neighbors of Harold, these tenants of yours, Greg, they have to comply with whatever provisions you guys state in the lease. Here are some of the most popular agreements not to smoke inside the property, agreements not to keep pets inside the property, agreements to only allow people written in the lease to reside in the property. So let's say I have a 1 bedroom right next to Harold, and the landlord and I decide, hey, only you, Jonathan, could reside in this property. But then I get married, and then I'm like, hey, let's move into my place, baby. So me and my new wife, we move into the property. At that point, I'm in violation of the lease. And what the law says is then you have to give that person a 7 day notice, and they have to, at that point, decide whether they're going to comply with it. And if they do, then you give them another chance. If not, then you can evict them for non-compliance with the lease provision. All right, so those are the two main reasons why you can evict somebody. Here's the third that's less common, but it's a thing as well. Well, let's say, Greg, you're coming to rent my property, and we had a great year, but all of a sudden at the end of the lease term, I'm like, you know what? I want to do something else with this property. So I inform you, Greg, in writing that you are no longer going to be permitted to reside there, and I'm terminating the lease at the end of the term. At that point, what we say is, if you remain in the property, are a holdover tenant. You're holding over beyond the length of time stipulated in the lease. As a result, the law says that you have to pay double rent and you can be removed from the property. Now, here goes practice tips. This is why I got paid the big bucks. Trying to go after that double rent is probably futile. You might get a judgment for it, but good luck collecting it. Good luck collecting anything from any tenant that leaves your property. You may have a judgment for that amount, but actually collecting whatever the judgment is, oftentimes tenants disappear. They're in the wind. Okay, so I got a better chance finding Jimmy Hoffa than finding an old tenant of mine. And trust me, this has happened, especially after an eviction, because after an eviction, the only tie that I had to them was the property that they just left. Now that they're gone, who knows where they are. So at that point, that person, going back to the previous reason, somebody stays beyond the length of the time of the lease. Now, what happens if you don't give any notice that that person's lease is being terminated, and the next month that person pays the rent just like normal, and you accept the rent just like normal? You have entered into a month-to-month lease, and the state of Florida says, unless you say otherwise, if you two continue the relationship like you've been doing, then now you have a month-to-month tenancy. That's important because ever since COVID, they changed the rules. And in most municipalities, whereas before all you needed to do was give 15-day notice, now you have to give 60-day notice. And if you're trying to do something with the property and you're not minding your P's and Q's, and all of a sudden this lease turns into a month-to-month lease and you have to give a 60-day notice for that tenant to move out, well, that's where you messed up because you haven't been minding your business as closely as you need to. So let me recap. With no whiteboard, with no visual aids, hopefully I'm doing a decent enough job. But here we go. Number one, I'm not getting paid. I'm going to sue for that amount. I'm going to evict for that amount. And I'm going to sue for possession of the property. You can also sue in the same lawsuit for the damages, for whatever they owe you. But like I said before, good luck collecting. I've never done it successfully. Number two, non-compliance with the lease provision. Oh yeah, by the way, when it comes to non-compliance with the lease provision, let's say somebody threatens my life. Am I supposed to give that person a 7-day notice and say, hey, don't do it again? After 7 days, I expect you not to threaten my life again. No. In instances of an emergency or extreme circumstances, you can terminate their lease immediately. I once had a relationship with this one property where there was some young kids who were doing drugs and I think engaging in sexual activity it had a rooftop area, and they had cameras, and the fallacy, the highs and the lows of youth. It's an opiate, you know. When you're young, you just do dumb stuff. And so she was caught on camera, literally, and the apartment complex terminated her lease. Also, I've had other instances where there was threats, and again, you can terminate immediately. You don't have to give 7-day notice. Now, going back to my example of the woman in Trinidad, I asked that that property owner if her property manager had been threatened. She said no. She was just called ugly names and things of that nature. So we could probably give a 7-day notice and say don't do it again, but we probably can't terminate right now. All right. So now the third reason why somebody's a holdover tenant, and at that point that person has stayed beyond the term of their tenancy. Those are the reasons why you can evict in the first place. Let me talk about this other thing that's important. So, Mr. Terrence, somebody, a cousin of yours, Terrence, is like, hey man, let me stay in your place, man. I'm on hard times. I remember in college, man, I had this house that we called it the trap house. I had about 12 dudes living there. The couches were crappy. Nobody owned anything. I had my own room, but outside of that, it was, hey, whatever. I would come make a sandwich, open the fridge the next day, be like, where's my sandwich? So that was college. I had an HBCU with a bunch of young guys. So I let somebody in the property, and all of a sudden they don't want to leave. I get this question all the time. Jonathan, can I evict this person? In the state of Florida, you cannot evict that person. However, you can bring an unlawful detainer action. Person came in with your authorization, however, now they refuse to leave. As the title holder of the property, you can ask them to leave. So, a little nerdiness for you, non-nerds. An eviction is under Florida Statute Chapter 83, and an unlawful detainer is Florida Statute Chapter 82. So it's a different law, different set of rules, different set of circumstances. Same same family, but they got different daddies. They got the same mama, different daddies. So one is unlawful detainer, the other one is an eviction action. The eviction action, again, non-payment of rent, non-compliance with the lease provision, or holdover. Unlawful detainer, I let somebody in, a cousin, a friend, family member, and that person does not want to leave. I've seen this a lot of times with boyfriends of mothers of mothers or girlfriends of fathers, where that person actually passes away, and then the family now owns the property, and they're like, "Hey, I understand you had a relationship with my father, but now we want to sell this property, and you got to go now." And the person's like, "No, this is my property. I lived here with him for 7 years. That was my boo. He said this house is yours." And if there's no record of that, unlawful detainer action. I've done plenty of those. And those are the main ones that I want you to be aware of in the state of Florida. I'm going to touch on one, but I don't want you thinking about it too much because it's very complicated. There's an ejectment action. Okay, so we got eviction, unlawful detainer, and ejectment. And the difference between an ejectment and an unlawful detainer is that, let's say in that example of the boyfriend or the girlfriend of the person who passes away, that person does have some evidence that they paid for something or that they were given the property in some sort of way. At that point, that person can bring what's called an ejectment action, which shows that they have some claim to title. With an eviction and an unlawful detainer, they have no claim to title. There's an owner, and the owner wants that person out, either because they haven't paid, they're doing something crazy, or it's their time to go and they've overstayed. Or unlawful detainer, hey, I just want you gone. You never gave me any money. I let you in as a favor, and you need to go now. So 3 reasons: eviction, unlawful detainer, ejectment. No whiteboard, no visual aids, but doggone it, I think I did a good job.
You did. I have a question about how holidays fall into your notices.
Yes, holidays. So notices I touched on last time, but notices, when I say, oh, you have a 3-day, a 7-day notice, you got to make sure, or a 60-day notice I mentioned, if you have an overstay, if you have a month-to-month tenant, you have to make sure that holidays are not counted in that amount of days. So a 3-day notice, it's MLK Day coming up on Monday. Shouts out to MLK. If I drop that notice on Friday doesn't count because it's the day that I delivered the notice.
Right.
Monday doesn't count because it's a holiday. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. On that notice, I would say Thursday. By Thursday, the person has to pay or get out. That's in a 3-day notice. So good question, Karen. You got to make sure that you are mindful of that. Why? Well, if you mess up, the judge will say, go to jail, go directly to jail, do not pass go, do not collect $200. Just like Monopoly, you just wasted your time and money bringing an eviction action that was flawed from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Great question.
So basically it's business days. Because weekends don't count either.
Weekends do not count. That's correct, Greg. I did not mention that, but weekends do not count. Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Good students. Greg used to get A's in school back in the day. Not me. C's get degrees, baby. C's get degrees.
Anybody else have questions? Harold, anything we can answer for you? No? Okay. All right.
Hey, Jonathan, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
We're losing.
Am I the only one who lost them?
No, we all lost him.
Oh, hey, Terrence, pay your phone bill, bro.
Hey, I have a. Here he is. No.
There he is.
Oh, there we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Yes.
we got you.
Okay. All right. So, you in Florida, I'm in Ohio. So, in your experience, do you think that like as far as the laws for each state, do you think that is like a 80% uniform for the whole country and maybe a 20% for, state to state, have,
Yeah. So look, here's
you
how
muted, John.
I'm muted. Am I muted?
No,
No, I hear you.
I'm
Okay.
hearing you.
Okay.
Oh, you can hear him?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, that's weird. I wonder why I can't hear him.
It does have the microphone crossed off on your screen, Jonathan.
But
Oh
it's-
yeah, I have it. I have two cameras.
Oh, so that's why. Yeah, we can hear you though. You can hear
Okay.
me?
No, I can't hear him. I wonder why. Let me see.
Let me try this one and mute this.
Hold on once.
There you go. Try that, John.
Can you hear him
Now
now?
we lost you. That's weird.
Say something, John. I
No,
don't know.
no, we can hear you.
Nope. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. It'll come out on the recording, and check it out on the recording.
Yeah.
Technology.
Yeah.
Terrence, can you type it in the chat?
Okay. Let's see.
Yeah. So to answer his question, I just wanted to say that I always recommend finding local professionals in every area. If you're serious about this multifamily game, you got to have a solid broker. You got to have a solid finance guy, mortgage guy, and a solid attorney on your team. And if you don't have those things, then you're not gonna be doing it at the level that you could be doing it. I mean, you could do it on your own, but I wouldn't recommend it. Also, if you do all that stuff on your own, then I think you're leaving profit on the table. There's opportunity costs always, and you pay experts for the expertise.
Mhm.
All that said, that really wasn't your question, but it kind of is because, I suggest you sit an attorney who does what I do in Ohio and make sure, because it's not about the 80%, Terrence, it's the 20% of the nuances that really mess you up. So if the 80% is the same, the 20% is what's going to mess you up and make you lose money. So, even if it was even closer, 90%, the 10%, those nuances are going to mess you up. So, that's how I respond to that.
I had one other question. I can't think of it. I got to think for a second. I actually have maybe a little off topic. We're in a condo association here.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of legalities to putting a camera in an elevator for property preservation purposes?
So I used to practice condo law way back in the day, and I didn't think I was very good at it. If I'm honest.
Y'all still can't hear him?
Still can't hear?
Yeah, I'm typing his answer in the chat to you.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so all that to say, condos, they're very how could I say this in a nice way? You can have some leadership that is tough to deal with. I'll put it like that. And if people don't, if the the condo docs are such that the person could put a camera in an elevator, and as long as they vote and they go through everything legally, then they can do it. So I guess my answer is more to make sure that you're electing the people you want in leadership in your condo association.
Gotcha.
Otherwise,
Okay.
you get some tough individuals, and I saw all of it, and that's why I got out of that area of law, because it was like high school all over again. It was like, hey, this person doesn't like me, and they said this and they said that, and I just don't have the patience for it. So
Okay.
sorry I couldn't be more help to you,
No,
Karen,
that's okay.
but
Just kind of curious. Just kind of curious.
Yeah.
Talking about, so we're trying to figure it out a little bit.
for sure,
So,
for sure. Well, folks, I appreciate your time
thank
and
you
your
so much.
attention.
Michael.
Next time, I'll make sure that I have something for you to look at. Hopefully, you grasped all that. But I'm going to recap it for you. Eviction for 3 reasons. Well, that's 4. 3 reasons: non-payment, non-compliance, expiration of lease, or you also have an unlawful detainer if there was never
I got another
a
question.
permanent relationship.
Okay. Go ahead, Terrence.
Hey, can you give me about 3 key to find a good eviction attorney in my state that I know that has my best interest? Can you give me about three maybe signs or 3 questions I should ask him, when I'm trying to get a good eviction attorney? 3 questions I can ask him to see if he has my best interest.
Great question. Man, you smart, Terrence. Those are great questions. I say these 3 things. Number 1, um, make sure that person is referred by somebody else. So you're just not believing what you see on a screen, when you Google a person. But, if thank God I got the buyer rented of approval, bam. So I got that. I got a stamp of approval. Number 2, I would say that's important is that the person has the heart of a teacher, right? So they're not just providing a service for you, but they're giving you information that makes you a better um, owner of multifamily properties or rentals, period, right? So I always say, this is my philosophy. I say this to my clients all the time. A better informed client is a better client. For me, I won't have as many headaches answering questions that are to me they're obvious, or they won't be worried about the process unnecessarily. So if that person has the heart of a teacher, I think that is worth its weight in gold. Number 3, I would say that they have to have your same vision. So the clients that I like and the clients that like me are the ones who we've said to one another, man, we're going to run together and we're going to run at the same pace, right? If I'm not, the Bible says, don't be unequally yoked with non-believers, right? So what that means is oxen would be, walking together, and they have a yoke on one ox and a yoke on another ox, and they will walk together and plow the field. Well, if we're doing this work, we're not plowing fields, but we're doing this work in this space. We need to make sure that we are walking with somebody who shares our vision and wants to run with us in the same speed and direction.
You know what I'm going to do? Hold on.
I typed in what you said, kind of paraphrasing, not word for word.
Yeah. And I wrote it down too.
Yeah.
So we can send it to Terrence as well.
For sure. Send them the recording.
Yes. Do.
Anyhow, I love y'all. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
God bless you. Let
Have
me
a
go
great day, Jonathan.
save more people in America. Let me go fight for the people.
That's it.
Be
There
well.
you go.
Bye, guys.
All right, bye.
Nice meeting you, Harold.
Nice to meet you,
Nice to meet you
Harold.
as well. Great.
Yes, watch your emails. We have a bunch of classes coming up.
My email,
Watch your emails. Yes, we have a bunch of classes. coming up.
Harold, which is HAROLD .Guedes, which is GUEDEZ as in zebra @gmail.com.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
Right.
Have a great day.
Terrence, we'll send you the
likewise.
recording.
Oh, okay, because I missed
Yep.
the answer.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Yep. We'll
I
get you all
typed it all
set.
in the chat for you too, paraphrasing.
Okay.
But
Bye,
All right.
guys.
All right. Thanks, y'all.
See
Have
you
a
next.
great day. Thank you.
Okay.
good night, all.